I have 8 questions. You'll give me 3 numbers, and then whatever questions you land on, that is where we start at least.
2.
We have already landed on a Rings of Power one, which makes me happy. If you could swap roles with anyone in the cast, who would you pick and why would you want to play that character?
Nori, Brandyfoot, played by Markella Kavanagh, because I just think she's got so much heart. There's just so much empathy, and that character just is an empath, and I love that.
All right, what is your second number?
Okay, I'm gonna go with 8.
There is a zombie outbreak on the set of Rings of Power. You can select 2 cast members to join your team of survivors. Which 2 cast members do you pick to give yourself the best chance of surviving?
Ismael Cruz Cordova's character, Arondir, because that bow and arrow...
The real person, not the character.
Oh, the real person. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, that makes it slightly more interesting.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to say Sofia Nonvete, because A, she's a dear friend of mine, but B, she will just like defend her loyalty, you know, of like, no, you don't mess with my friends, no. But I think that's very important. And goodness, who's the second person? I'm gonna have to go with Ismael, I think, because it's a tie between Markella and Ismael, because I think there's both of those things. I need that sort of like, I think Markella has this ability to look at a person and then maybe the zombie will just freeze because it's no muscle power needed. She's just got those eyes that'll just make you like, oh, maybe I don't want to hurt anybody because look, she's looking at me with such kindness. And then Ismael's got that just like, don't mess with my peeps.
We have one more number to pick. What you got?
3.
What is something that you did for a role in the past that now makes you say, I'm really glad that I tried that, but I'd rather not do that again?
Yeah, this one is like, the answer came to me immediately. And that is, on How I Met Your Mother, there was a scene with a rat on Nora's head. Yeah, that was a real rat, and that rat decided to defecate on this head. And it was disgusting, guys. Never again am I gonna act with a rat.
Is it like when a bird poops on you and it's supposed to be good luck? Like a good omen?
Even if it is good luck, I feel like, yeah, don't need that kind of luck, no.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Collider Ladies Night. I am very excited to talk some Rings of Power right now with Nazanin Boniadi. Oh my, I'm so happy I finally get to talk to you after seeing episodes.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's right. Last time you hadn't seen it. Okay.
There's been a lot of stuff that I've been very curious about.
Yeah.
Now I have answers, but also now I just have more questions. So.
Yes, I understand that fully.
What did you think at the time step 1 to becoming an actor was, and now having gone through that phase of the process, is that step something you would recommend to an aspiring actor out there?
So it's interesting because I was going to be a doctor and I was pre-med, so my degree's in biology. And I graduated with honors because I worked so hard, it did not come naturally to me. And then in my mid-20s, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go act now. And needless to say, my parents were like, wait, what? You can't just throw away medicine. And so I just started taking as many classes as I could. I didn't go to drama school at the time. But yeah, I think my advice would be to my younger self of, it's okay to make mistakes on screen and learn from it, because I was so hell-bent on, you know, I had, as a lot of actors do, imposter syndrome, right? Of like, I'm supposed to be a doctor, I'm not supposed to be doing this. And yeah, so I think just, it's okay, cut yourself some slack and just it's okay to like learn as you go and improve and grow.
I feel like I might be getting too specific with this follow-up, but do you remember a moment on set where it really hit you, where maybe being word perfect wasn't the right route, but you actually had to feel something out in the moment and maybe make a mistake in order to find the magic in a scene?
Yeah, I remember because my first really sort of continuous job was General Hospital. And I remember, because, you know, you shoot, what is it, an episode a day. You don't have time to play as much as you want to. You're usually doing one, at the most 2 takes to sort of like get the day done. And so with that comes just learning lines and not sometimes being able to play with it as much as you want. And I would just put so much pressure on myself of like, no, but I wanted to do it more this way or that way. And sometimes it's about just the logistics of getting something done, and being hard on ourselves actually doesn't help the process.
In all of your past TV and film projects, which two actors would you say have the most polar opposite approach to their work? Where, when you were on set with one person versus another, you would know that you as their scene partner would have a completely different experience. And it would kind of, broaden your idea of how many different processes and approaches there are out there.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, it's so different because when you're working in comedy, there's a looseness, there's a banter that goes on between takes. There's you're not staying in, well, sometimes you are, I suppose, depending on what you're filming, but there's Homeland versus How I Met Your Mother, two completely different experiences. So you have someone who is more method and stays in it, like a Mandy Patinkin, and needs to be in the moment. And I revere his technique and everything he brings to the screen. Also, he's an incredibly kind person and friend, so I have an immense amount of respect for him. But then you also have just, people who joke between takes and they don't need to stay in it, and which was basically most of the cast of How I Met Your Mother. So to go from one sort of extreme to the other, if you will, of a very sort of upbeat and carefree set to a more disciplined and and I would even say that Claire and Mandy have different techniques. Even within a show, people have different techniques. All of us do. But yeah, it's always wonderful learning from various people, like how they get into and come out of a character.
Let's get into a film really briefly. So the one that I wanted to ask about was Iron Man. Is there any kind of impression that set made on you in terms of what it might mean going forward, being on like a big studio blockbuster type set?
Yeah, I mean, I literally had one scene in the original Iron Man, but it was a very fun scene to shoot. I think I spent a couple of days with those guys. Jon Favreau is just an incredible person, incredible director, leader. He set the tone for that film. Robert Downey too. I didn't share the screen with him, even though my scene is playing in his scene, which is because I'm a reporter. So, but yeah, all of them. It was just such a pleasure because you have this expectation as a new actor to meet these legends and for there to be ego, for there to be some kind of exclusivity, and there really wasn't. And Jon, I just want to publicly thank Jon Favreau because he is part of the reason I think I got the show Counterpart, because Justin Marks, the creator of Counterpart, worked with Jon on Jungle Book, and because he wrote Jungle Book, and I think he made a call to Jon and said, about me. And I think Jon spoke very favorably about me and my experience. And I then bumped into Jon a few years later, a couple of years ago, right before the pandemic. And he was so complimentary, so supportive, and so proud that he had me in Iron Man, and now that I'm here. So this is before Lord of the Rings. But it all comes full circle for me. And I think being in that world helped inform this moment.
I wanted to go back to your first audition for the role, especially given the fact that, this is like a highly anticipated, highly top secret production here. So what would you say is the biggest difference between auditioning for Rings of Power versus any other audition you've done before?
Well, first of all, it was a very long process. It was months and months. 4 different auditions, 1 in person, 3 on tape, because I was traveling around the world on various things. And just waiting, the anticipation of, surely we must have some news. And all I kept hearing is, you're in the mix. And we hear that often as actors, but usually we get the answer to that sooner. And it doesn't usually take 4 or 5 months to hear what the outcome is. And so the anticipation was killing most of us. I think the journey was similar for most of the actors. And when I got the news, it was very short turnaround. So it was like, you got the job, you're moving to New Zealand in like 3 weeks. So you need to uproot your life and move to New Zealand. And of course, I was beyond happy to and excited and felt so blessed. It really is a dream come true.
You book the role, you're getting ready to move to New Zealand, and you do whatever beginning prep you have to. What is the biggest difference between what you envisioned for the character before hitting set and then who she turned out to be when you actually got to dig into the role?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I knew that she was a healer. I knew she was the single mother of a rebellious teenage son. I knew she was in a forbidden romance with an elf. What I didn't realize was that she was also going to sort of tap into her inner strength and resilience, and there was going to be more to her than meets the eye as far as that strength, and that she would assume any kind of sort of responsibility for her people. That was new to me as the season went along, and I realized that she's so multifaceted, and I just love that about her, and it really, really made me want to just sort of dive in to play. There's so much about her that resonates with me. She's a healer. I was pre-med, and also this sort of like desire to liberate her people from the shackles of their past. Resonates with me because I'm an activist for my homeland, Iran, a human rights activist. So there's so much. She's sort of like the fantastical version of myself, which I love.
There's one other part of the process of making a show that I wanted to ask you about, because whether it's a pilot episode or in your case, filming 2 episodes and then going on hiatus and then coming back, you can learn like a whole lot with that time to reflect. So what would you say is something that you learned while making episodes 1 and 2, you were able to reflect on and then apply to the work going forward?
Well, I think it was great because we had J.A. for the first 2 episodes, J.A. Bayona, who's phenomenal. And I learned so much from him because he did takes, for example, where he'd do silent takes. So he'd play music in the background, but you wouldn't say your dialogue. So you'd go through all the emotions of a scene. I'd never done this before. But
it's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
So
I've
cool.
never heard of that before.
It's so cool. But what that allowed me to do was sort of remind myself, because actors, sometimes we learn the lines and we deliver the lines and we think that might be all there is to it. Of course, there's layers. But what that helps you do is remember the emotional context of the scene and not rely on your words alone. So it's a constant reminder throughout the season that even though other directors don't have that technique, it's a really fun tool to be able to remind yourself that a lot of the times what we're communicating doesn't have to be through words.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about was the costume in particular. And if you could pinpoint some details of it that I guess kind of speak to her past, speak to where she is now, and maybe even anything that might reflect where she wants to go in the future.
The costumes are a character in and of themselves. And I think Bronwyn's is, Bronwyn reminds me a lot of the Ruby character in Cold Mountain played by Renee Zellweger, sort of like of the earth, very sort of grounded movements. There's nothing glamorous about the character. And her costume, even though I'm constantly covered in dirt and mud, but, the costume is blue, and she chose blue for Bronwyn, despite the fact that the canvas, if you look at the overall canvas of the Soutlanders, there's a lot of beige, gray and beige. But with her, that pop of blue almost signifies that she's an outcast, that there's something different about her, that she's slightly ostracized. And an element of rebellion, of like that, she doesn't quite fit in with the rest of them in her ideas and the way she is. And that yearning for reaching out and connecting with the other, which is sort of her romance with the elf, forbidden romance.
She is very clearly shaping up to be a leader and already has those qualities in her. What are tactics and approaches to leadership that would make her stand out from other leaders that we are going to see in Rings of Power?
I think I see her as a grassroots leader. So she's not an expected leader. She's not a political type. She's not a diplomat. She's not. She wasn't born to do this. She earned it because she's sort of like someone whose instincts are really strong, who has a very sort of, I feel like has a strong moral compass, and is a unifier of types. I don't think she's like, it's not sort of a us versus them. She seeks sort of, what's the best way to move forward and leave the negativity behind us and forge a strong future and come together, and how do we work with, instinctively she wants to overcome the bad in her past, the negative in the Soutlanders' past, and form a better future. So she's a character that's filled with hope and doesn't sort of hold on to the darkness that I think a lot of Southlanders have a hard time moving on from their lot in life and what they sort of see themselves as the victims of all of this. So why are we outcast? Why are we not trusted? Whereas with her, she's trying to more overcome that. And I think that lends itself to sort of hope and moving forward.
Congratulations on this and everything you've accomplished. Thanks for sharing some of your stories with us on Ladies Night.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a huge fan of your show.
That means the world to me. Thank you. So I'm a huge fan of your show now, too. I'm so glad I finally got to see episodes.
Oh, I'm so glad. Me too. It's really hard to do interviews without that.